Okay, here we are on the last little piece, the third piece of the respiratory structures lecture, and we're just going to talk about a couple of the macroscopic structures of the lungs. So big structures here, starting with the lobes of the lungs. So you have two lungs. You have a left lung and a right lung, and those lungs are then divided into little pieces of the lung, which are called lobes. Now, the left lung, because the heart is on the left side, there's sort of less space for it. So the left lung only has two lobes, and then the right lung has an additional lobe. Okay, so the right and the left lung, they both have a superior lobe and an inferior lobe, the top and a bottom, but the right lung has an additional lobe, which is called the middle lobe. Now, please note, I didn't say median. Median is a different word. I said middle. So you have the superior lobe, the middle lobe, and then the inferior lobe. Okay, so just remember that the heart is on the left side, so the right side has the extra middle lobe. Now, the groove, the deep grooves between the lobes of the lungs, those are called fissures. We've seen that word before when we talked about the brain. Remember the longitudinal fissure running down the middle of the brain. So a fissure is a deep groove, and these grooves, these fissures are named by how the orientation of the lines. So the left and the right lung both have oblique fissures, and oblique means at an angle, okay, running diagonally. And then the right lung, because it has that extra lobe, the middle lobe, the division between the middle lobe and the superior lobe, that's going to be called the horizontal fissure because it's more of a flat line instead of running down at an angle. Okay, then we also have some more different structures. The lungs make a little bit of a pyramid shape, and anytime you have any organ, we've seen it with the heart already, anytime you have an organ where you have a pointy side and a flatter side that makes like a triangle shape, the pointy side at the top is going to be the apex, and then the flatter part at the bottom is going to be the base. Now, please note that for the heart, the apex was on the bottom, and then the base was on the top. But for the lungs, the apex is going to be on the top and the base is going to be at the bottom. So just remember, apex is the pointy side, base is the flat side at the bottom. Then we also have the hilum. A hilum that's also a sort of generic term. We're going to see it again when we talk about the kidneys. This is the location in the lungs where the bronchi and the blood vessels enter and then exit the lungs. Okay, so this location where you have things coming in and things going out, that's called the hilum. And then on the left side, not the right side, but on the left side, because of the location of the heart kind of nestles in with the lungs. That little cutout area is called the cardiac notch, and it's only going to be found on the left lung, not the right lung. Okay, so there's the cardiac notch right there. Let's look at the structures that are found at the hilum. So what we're looking at in this picture right here, so here's the apex, there's the base. What we're doing is instead of looking at the lungs from the front, from the front here, we're looking at it as if you took the lung and kind of rotated, and you're looking at it from the point of view of as the things enter. So there's three different things that enter and exit. So you have a thick one. See how thick the wall is? That would be the primary bronchi entering the lungs right there. So the bronchi enter, those are the thickest ones. And then you have two different types of blood vessels. You have arteries, and those are going to be coming off the pulmonary trunk, bringing the blood to the lungs, the deoxygenated blood. Then in the lungs, it'll pick up the oxygen in the alveoli and come back out, and the way it exits the lungs is through the pulmonary veins. Okay, so remember that arteries have a thicker tunica media, so the walls of the arteries will be thicker than the walls of the veins. So the very, very thickest one with lots of cartilage, bronchi. The thicker but not as thick ones are the arteries, and the absolute thinnest walls will be the veins. Okay, so let's review the pulmonary circulation again real quick. So here we have the right atrium to the left to the right ventricle. When the right ventricle contracts, that's going to pump blood from the pulmonary trunk to the pulmonary arteries. And the pulmonary arteries, remember there's two because they both go towards the lungs. The pulmonary arteries are going to go to the lungs. It'll then travel along and branch off into, arterioles, then capillary beds, and the capillary beds surround those alveoli, pick up the oxygen, and then it'll go to venules, into veins, and then it'll go all dump into the 4 pulmonary veins. There are 2 coming from each side. So those 4 pulmonary veins will then go back to the left atrium, which will then dump into the left ventricle, which then dumps to the aorta and goes to the whole body. Okay, so remember that usually arteries are red and veins are blue, but the red or blue designates oxygenated or deoxygenated blood. So the only exceptions are these pulmonary arteries and veins. The pulmonary arteries is usually shown as blue because it is deoxygenated, even though it's coming away from the heart. That's why it's still an artery. And the pulmonary veins are often depicted as red because they are oxygenated, even though they are veins. They're called veins just because they're going towards the heart. So arteries away from the heart, veins towards the heart. Okay, let's check real quick. Okay, so first thing you want to do is sort of orient yourself. This right here would be the right lung, and this right here would be the left lung. At the top, we have the apex. Here is the base. And what we're looking at now is the different lobes. Remember that the right lung does not need to have extra space for that heart to nestle into, so it has an extra lobe. What's the name of the extra lobe in the middle? The middle lobe. Okay, so we have the superior lobe, the middle lobe, and then the inferior lobe. And then the grooves, deep grooves in the lungs, those are fissures. You have 2 oblique fissures, so B would be the oblique fissure. Here's another oblique fissure right here. And then you have one that's more flat. That's going to be the horizontal fissure there. Okay, that's enough for now. See you later.